Well, it's still the usual suspects at the front of the pack at the men's elite. The four runners exchanging positions constantly. Samson Barmal, Luc Kibet, and Lilan, as well as Kenneth Mungara, still running about 20 meters behind them is Daniel Kipragut, as Steve had mentioned. Had a very good year this year. Ran a personal best of 2:08.25 in Ljubljana.
Yeah, and as I said, the experience that he's got is, I mean, they're all experienced, most of them in that group there, but he now knows, he can sense that he's catching them. He's, I reckon, 6 seconds just counting in my head, and that's close enough. I think they've spotted the danger now, though. I think Kibet has realised that there's somebody coming from behind, and he'll know this guy. He'll know that this guy is a good runner, and he won't want to have somebody like Kipragut joining the group at such a late point in the race. I mean, there's maybe another 17, 18 minutes of running here. They're just beyond the 2 hours point. You've just seen the clock click by, 2 hours. It's been a slow race. Certainly, even by Singapore standards, we're looking at a slower time than the last 2-3 years. Certainly a lot slower than Luc Kibet ran when he broke the course record of 2 hours and 11. And he's aware that these four have just got to keep the pressure on. Don't let him get close. Don't let him let his confidence build. Don't let him get a sense that he can join them here. There he is. He's a laboured looking runner anyway. He's strong, but maybe the effort to get to them is just starting to tell a little bit. He got to within 5 or 6 seconds, and maybe that lead now is just starting to extend again. He'll just be hoping that they settle down and give him a chance, but it's tough. Remember I said earlier on that to close gaps later in the race, it's got to be the other guys who are tiring, rather than it's hard to pick up your pace really quickly. And that last 5 kilometres between 30 and 35 was the quickest by a long way, 15 minutes and 17 seconds for that 5 kilometres, and that's fast. That was Barmau doing that surge, it was others picking it up, keeping it going, and so if they went that quick, of course, I think they've slowed a little since then, but he's obviously had to contend with that as well. Beginning to look a little tired.
Daniel Kipragut, of course, a very good runner, but as Steve had mentioned, running all his races in Europe, so not familiar with the conditions here in Asia, and it appears to be telling on him. A very labored-looking posture as we look at the lead men and their posture and their gait, very much fresh and looking very good as they leave the Gardens by the Bay. And you can see the Marina Bay Sands coming up on their left-hand side. They're running on the East Coast Parkway Highway right now. That tall, very statuesque building, the Marina Bay Sands, one of the iconic landmarks here in Singapore, of course. Steve, if we were to estimate, I know the timings are not as fast as in the past few years. If we were to estimate the winning time right now, what region would we be looking at?
Well, I reckon about 2:17, 2:18. I mean, 2:17 probably I'm assuming they'll pick up the last couple of kilometres because it hasn't been that hard early on. Kipragut, if he could just get within sort of 30, 40 metres, the camera makes that look a lot more. It's saying there 14 seconds. That's extended because it was 6 or 7 seconds. So he looks as though the effort to try and catch them has maybe been a little bit too much. I think also that these guys have spotted the danger. They're building the pace. They're building for the finish. They're building for the big last effort. They won't all be trusting themselves. I mean, I have seen marathons. I've seen the London Marathon where we've had 5 or 6 people come around the corner of the mile together sprinting, the last 400 metres. It's always very exciting. It's not a great position to be in if you're one of those doing it. You don't want to get out-kicked at the end of 26 miles. But, these four, nobody yet seems as though they want to push on. And that's because there's still, a good 13, 14 minutes of running left. No, he looks very tired now.
And let me ask you this, Steve, because this could be a determining factor in the race right now. The runners right now are approaching this hill off the East Coast Parkway Highway, which starts off gentle here, but it's actually quite steep, and it could make a difference in this leading pack. If you look right now as they start their incline, we've seen in the past runners coming undone on this hill, and it could be a determining factor.
Absolutely, it's a more of a long drawn out hill, as you said. You're tired. You've got 4 kilometers of running left still. The legs are a bit dead, and you can see Kiprikut. He's not able to raise anything. Look, there's no knee lift there. A little bit flat-footed. As I said, he's not the lightest of runners on his feet anyway, but he's having to work really hard here. And in his mind, he's thinking, if I can just. He's either going through a bad patch here, or he got close. He could sense that there was an opportunity, but it's gradually disappearing now as these 4 are starting to apply a bit of pressure. And this is going to come down to a bit of strength now. It's not about speed at the end of the marathon. It's about having the strength. You're maintaining your pace, and if you can just pick it up a little bit, because you break everybody else's rhythm, and it's not easy to do at the end of a long marathon. The legs are a bit dead, but this hill is an opportunity for somebody if they want to take it. This is going to sound silly now after I've said everything about running up a hill, but there's also an art to running downhill, and not everybody can run downhill. And when you get, what happens with marathon runners, you get a bit unusual. Track runners don't get it so much, but you get quite dead in your thighs, and that's something which, when you've got really heavy legs and you start to run on a steep downhill, it's kind of a sort of a jarring effect, can deaden the legs a little bit more. So when you think, oh, I'm feeling okay, all of a sudden you run down a bit of a hill, and then you lose a bit of energy out of the legs as well. So you probably, I don't know, when I was a kid, we used to practice running downhill. It's hard because your stride length changes. You've got to keep your balance. And although it sounds nice, you think, yeah, I'd love to run downhill rather than uphill. Not everybody does it as well as everybody else. So, again, another opportunity here. Didn't happen uphill, could happen on the downhill section.
No, I absolutely believe you, Steve, because at this stage of the race, there's a lot of buildup of lactic acid in the muscles. And like you said, there is an art to running downhill as there is running uphill. But as we can see from the lead men right now, they seem to be handling the conditions, the incline and the decline, very, very well. The only runner who seems to be falling behind is Samson.
Well, I think he's always been the one struggling to stay with it, and every time there's a bit of a push on them. Well, all that Kenneth did there was let his legs, you could see his running action just changed down the hill. He didn't do anything. He's just got an easier action down the hill, stretched it out a little bit, and of course, as soon as they got back on the flat again, they've all got back together. So that was just to do with his action. I think had he got a little bit more of a gap, had he maybe been not just Samson who fell away, if the other two had, he might have tried to push on a little bit there, but wasn't to be the case. And here we are. This is intriguing for me. It's really interesting to see Luc Kebet coming back. I watched him win. He was a bit of a surprise winner of the World Championships in Osaka in Japan in 2007. It was a hot, humid day that day. A slow race compared to what many championships are won in. Much quicker than this today that we've seen. But he was not a fancied athlete. I remember Victor Reutlin running very, very well as well. He was a surprise medalist in there, one of the European athletes, which you don't often see, but it was the conditions. The conditions dictated who won on that day, and that was really the Luc Kebet announcing himself to the world. He's won some big races, including here in Singapore, and has run some good times. But this is a return to form for him. It's good to see him in this group.
And just picking up what you just said, Steve, Luc Kebet, yes. Putting in a season best this year in Vienna of 2:12:31. But if we go to look at a more relevant timing and what a time that he's on course to make this year in similar conditions was in January in Mumbai when he ran 2:18:36.
Yeah, and it's more that he was 16th and 17th in those two races. That's what tells you that he wasn't running very well. The times obviously are in relation to what everybody else is doing. And if you finish 16th and 17th in Vienna and Mumbai, they're not massive world-class races. So this is a return to form for him. So these 4 got it between them. The women's race continuing to develop. And no surprise that Kosgei still very much there. Chayech just going through the picture. She looks as though she's working hard as they head over the water here. Now it looks to me as though there's been a bit of break on here. This may not be, is it the leaders or is there somebody ahead of them? There's Church on the far side, and that looks like Rumacol. And Irene Koskai, of course, the two-time winner, going for 3 in a row, but having to work hard at this point. She's looking behind. That's, as I said, never a good sign. So these two, Church, who came here with good form, said she'd be a danger, looking comfortable, and teammate alongside her. These two forcing the pace. And Koskai, languid style, but having to work at the moment.
And we're back to the men. As we can see, it's still the same 4 men sticking in the pack as they make their way around Republic Avenue. And this, of course, they'll make their way around Republic Avenue, come back around Temasek Boulevard and down Esplanade Drive before finishing off at the Padang. This is more or less the home stretch for the men right now, and you can see Kenneth Mungara there trying to distance himself from the other 2 runners, but Luke Kibet is not having any of it, and neither is Lilan.
Well, a bit of a change again, and it's interesting, isn't it? It's Kibet that, to me, looks the one who's ready to push this on. He's the one, Barmau has been coming and going, and although I'm delighted to see him still there, because, as I said, you know, he should have been a bit more positive earlier on. I think he kept looking behind, but he is now in the top 3. He's still there, but it's Kibet, to me, who's kind of controlling this at the moment. Lilan, danger. We know he can win big races. That's what you look at. You look at somebody's CV, if you like, and you go, does he win? Does he win races? When it comes down to the crunch, can he find something a little bit extra in the last kilometre? And Lilan does that. In this part of the world, admittedly, not in the big races, the big fast races, but he knows how to win in this part of the world, and that's important. So he's a winner. Kibet's a winner. Barmau in between the 2 of them. An intriguing last couple of kilometres here. Another 5 or 6 minutes of racing to go. And anybody's race this is. Absolutely any of these 3 could win it. I think, unfortunately, brave effort from Kenneth Mungara, but looks as though his chances of winning this are quickly disappearing.
Yes, as we see the men leaving the Singapore Flyer behind them, Luke Kibet making his move, as is Lilan. And like Steve has been saying all through the course of this race, Lilan, who's looked very impressive throughout this race, has been a danger to these runners, because he's very familiar with the conditions here in Asia. He's run here all throughout this year in Hong Kong, Bali, and Kuala Lumpur, and posting first in Malaysia and in Indonesia in times of, well, in Kuala Lumpur he put in a time of 2:14.46, and we've got another 1.5 Ks to go, and he would be coming in just over that time, but so would Luke Kibet, and Luke Kibet as well. I mean, has the pedigree. He is a former world champion, so he knows what it takes to win this race at this stage of the competition.
Look at Samson. You know, if I was his coach, I'd be pulling my hair out. You know, it's marathon running is about conserving energy, and he could win this race. He's got, you know, he's obviously a great athlete. He's been in good form this year, as we've said before. Not testing these conditions, and you mentioned Uday flew in late, missed his flight, all of that sort of thing. Not the best preparation, and he's to me what I call a fidgety runner. You know, he's never quite sure what he wants to be doing, and at this stage of the race, if I were him, I'd be just waiting and waiting and waiting. It's Kibet who looks as though he wants to push it all the time. These two are good runners, they're experienced runners. And if I was Barmau, I just want to stay with them, literally till the last 400 meters or so, and then see what I've got left, see what I can do. So he doesn't need to agitate, he doesn't need to move around, just stay with these. The pace is now fast. The 5K they just completed up to 40K, 14:57. And 14:57 pace is really serious running. I mean, that's the sort of pace that, you know, the 2 7 marathon runners do. If you ran that the whole way, you'd be running a very fast marathon. Obviously, we haven't had that. And if you compare that to our first 5K, which was 16:42, almost 2 minutes difference, that shows you how much quicker they're running now.
And you can see the theatres by the bay on the left of the runners as they make the left turn here onto the Esplanade Bridge.